All right, welcome back, everybody. And we've got a great game where we've got a time now, we've got some coin collectibles, we've got a goal, we've got some challenges here that we could try and figure out our way through the maze to get to my end goal here, wherever that may be. Oh, there's that cake. There we go. But despite the challenges that a puzzle can give and the desire for you to go collect some coins, we might want something a little more tricky to be able to figure out how to get past as part of our game. So I'm thinking that we would like to add a couple extra little features to our game here. So I was thinking of something a little bit more challenging so that if as I'm going along here, there's some obstacles I need to avoid. So I'm going to create what I'm going to call a stomper or smoosher or something like that. So let's create that. And I'd like to look at adding some animation to our game. So while we can program and code a number of the items, sometimes it's nice to just have something that goes in a repeated pattern and we don't have to worry about the programming and we can just put it into our game. So I am going to add a new object. In this case, it's going to be something like the fall zone, something that's going to be like a big block that kind of crushes the player. We have to kind of time it to get through here. So I'm going to create an area 3D like I've done with a lot of other things here, and I'm going to call this the Stomper. And the Stomper is going to get itself a mesh instance 3D. I'm going to make it just a big old block here. So let's create this new mesh. I'm just going to make it a box mesh here. And I'm going to give the box mesh a size here. In this case, I'm going to make it 2 tall by 1 by 1. So it's just a little bit of a block that's going to come out here. We might want to change it a little bit later on as far as the size goes. But in addition to that, I'm going to need a collision shape. There we go, which is going to also be a box. And I'm going to click on that and then also make that 2 tall so that now I've got this box here. And that's all I'm going to create for that. Just save the stomper. Oh, you know what I am going to need is later on, this stomper is going to hit the player just like the fall zone and things like that and send it back to the beginning. So I'm going to add a script to this here and go back to that stomper and I'm going to use a signal, just like, again, a bunch of things we've done. We've done our goal, we've done our fall zone, we're going to do a body entered, connect that up here, and I'm just going to say if something hits the stomper, I'm going to get tree dot reload current scene. Just going to send me back to the beginning. So really all we've done here is created a fall zone that has a physical presence. Now, so that I can make sure it's the right size or actually fits in here, let's bring it into level 1 and I'm going to click link to instantiate that stomper that I just made. And let's bring it over here and bring it up a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good. I don't think I could get past that without hitting it. So let's just see if it works. At the moment, I'm just going to run into it and it should reload the current scene. So it kind of works like a fall zone that I can see. There it is. Yeah, obviously there's no way I'm getting past that. And if I bump into it, boom, I get reloaded to the current scene. There we go. But of course, I want to be able to get past it. So the idea of this stomper is that it's going to go up and down, kind of crushing the player or attempting to crush the player like so. And I could easily program that, have it move up a certain period of time and then move down for a certain period of time. But that means that I'm kind of fixed as to how high and low I want to make it. And it also doesn't give me an opportunity to show you this new feature, which will be our animation. So the idea is I would like to create an animated character here that is controlled by something else other than code. And we have, fortunately, another node here. So I'm going to add a node to my level 1 called an animation player right there, a node for animation playback. So I'm just going to add that. And really, it doesn't do much at the beginning. It's kind of a container. You will see down below here, there's a new little window that opens called the animation tab here. And I get really nothing into it because an animation player can actually have multiple different animations it could play. I could have an animation that was for playing the stompers. I could have animation for an enemy moving around. I could, in theory, animate these coins spinning. Anything can be animated in, or many things can be animated in your game. So before I can start the animation, I have to add a new animation. You can see we can have multiple ones that we can manage here. Now a player can only play one at a time, but it can house multiple different ones. So in this case, I'm going to call this animation the Stomper movement. Let's spell that properly, Stomper movement. And as soon as that appears, I get this little track here that opens up and some extra options. Now, this is actually a timeline. It's a very common kind of animation framework. If you've done any kind of animation before, this should look pretty familiar. If not, let's quickly look at it here. We've got a little stop, play, forward, step kind of thing here. We have a timeline along the top here. This is actually, we've got a little zoom feature that you can zoom in here. You're actually looking at the animation in seconds, or as we go down fractions of a second. So I'm going to zoom to a feature where I can see like, oh, there we go. So we've got 0, half a second, 1 second, 1.5 seconds, and so on. At the moment, you can see that I've got this little thing called a playhead here. And it goes up to a second. I can't go any further. That's because I've set my animation to be 1 second long, and you can find that number at the end here, where it's a little time animation length. So I'm going to extend this and say I'd like a 3-second animation. And there we have it there. You can also turn on or off the looping of the animation, so that whether the animation goes around and around or just plays once, as you may want to have for something like, say, if you had an attack animation that your player went through or something like that, it may only play a single time. So we've got the animation, and once you've added that animation, that animation player, now we've added the stomper movement or any animation here, you're going to see something new appear over on the inspector. You're going to see all of these little keys appearing on basically everything that you've created. All these nodes now have a little key that wasn't there before. And the idea is that this is what we call keyframe animation. So traditional animation would go, and you've probably done this, you'd have a single, let me bring up a little paint here. You'll have a little frame. You've probably done this in a math notebook or something like that. You would have made a little stick figure or something like that, and then you would have turned the page and you would have made a little stick figure that has changed a little bit. And then you would turn the page and you would make another little stick figure that's maybe changed a bit more, and so on and so forth. And then you would flip through these little pages really quickly, and it would look like your little stick figure was moving. This is your traditional frame animation. This is how Disney made things for a number of years. This is how we kind of learned about how to make movies and things like that, is just trick the eye to seeing a series of related pictures that look like they're moving when they're played very quickly. Now, this was a very time-consuming and laborious process. So with the advent of computer animation, what we could do is create kind of the first frame if we wanted, and then down the road, we could create what we would call another key frame. So this is our first key frame, and this would be our second key frame. It's the start and the end of the animation, and then by giving it amount of time, we could tell the computer, hey, figure out how you go from keyframe A to keyframe B. fill in all of the work for me, thereby saving me a ton of drawing and a ton of effort. And this is our new kind of standard keyframe animation. So that's why we get these little keys here, because what we can do is say with my stomper, anything that has a little key beside it, any property is animatable. So we can animate, the brightness of things, we can animate colors, we can animate the position of the sun. We can also, under transform here, we can animate all of these transform properties, including the rotation, the scale, and the position. And you can see as I move around that my position items change. So what I'm going to do is on my stomper now, I'm going to put it where I want, and I can see that my animation playhead is at position 0 here. I'm going to set a keyframe, and I do that just by clicking that little key there. And the first time it says, do you want to create a new track for property position and insert a key? Yes, I do. Create. And what will happen is on my stomper movement animation now, I can see that the stomper appears as well as the property that I'm animating, position. And let me zoom in here, a little diamond appears as well, showing me that there is a keyframe that has been set. So at 0 seconds, the position of my stomper is going to be remembered as these settings here. And then what I can do is I'm going to zoom ahead. I zoomed in a little bit close there. Give me 3 seconds. I'm going to zoom ahead to about, let's go 1.5 seconds. That's about halfway. And I'm going to say, okay, well, at this time, I want to pull this stomper up. I'm going to move it a little bit higher here to say, well, it's got lots of space there. Maybe down a little bit, make it a bit more challenging. And here is my new position that I want. And here's the new time I want it. So this is going to be my second keyframe. And what I can do is click to add another keyframe here, and you can see a little diamond appears there. And so now I've got this diamond here and this diamond here. So at 0 seconds, it was down on the ground, and at 1.5 seconds, it's up here. And already the computer has figured out all of the steps required in between to make this animation run smoothly. So you can now see as I scrub back and forth, or if I hit the play, that it's now moved up and is actually coming back down because I'm looping it here. But wouldn't if I wasn't, it would end up at the end there. So we've now got this set up here. And what I can then do is go back here, and this is actually looks like it's already done nicely for me. But I can move it to any position I want, and I'm going to set a final keyframe there. So now I've got this up and down movement, as you see, and if I play my game, you'll see that, oh, nothing happens. So Stomper's just stood there, even though I've already got an animation on it. And the reason for that is because I might not want the animation to start right away. I might want to have the animation play when I hit a certain key for an attack or a dodge or some kind of character movement or something like that. So by default, your animations don't autoplay, but there is a little button here right beside the animation that says autoplay on load, which means I want to start playing right away without having to start this via a script. And you can see now I've got my stomper moving back and forth, and it makes it a little more challenging because now I have to time it to avoid it here. And if I do get squished, you can see it collides with me, so I do get restarted there. Now, going back to there, this is kind of a, not really the stomper look I'm going for. Click down here and click on my animation. It feels a little bit robotic, so I want this idea that it's maybe going to go up really slow and then smash down here. So I'm going to move this keyframe. And you can move these here so that now it's that idea that it was up at that position very slowly and then comes down really quick. So if I play here, now I've got a bit more of a challenge here for a time. I've got to make sure I find that and fit underneath it just at the right time. So um, what I can do now is maybe make this a little more challenging. I could have a couple stompers here. So I'm going to duplicate my stomper here. And now I have stomper number 2. And I'm going to put it just beside the other stomper. Maybe give it a little bit more space between the two. So now I have 2 stompers. You will see, however, that as I play this, only stomper number 1, oh, I can't move it because I've got a keyframe jumping back there. Only stomper number 1 has been animated, but that's okay, and maybe a good thing as well, because I want stomper number 2 to be animated, but maybe I don't want to have it move it exactly the same. Maybe I want to kind of play with a little bit, and I'll say, well, you know what, at 0 seconds, I actually want this one to be up high. And if I then add a keyframe for my stomper number 2, it'll say, do you also want to create a track for this? And insert a key. Yes, I do. If I create that, you can see that stomper number 2 has now appeared with its own unique set of keyframes. And I could say, well, maybe in a quick one, I want that to move down. There, let's make sure we're not burying it in the ground. Looks pretty good. And I will set a new keyframe for that one. Oop, that was on the rotation. Set a new keyframe there. And then at the top position, I will set a final keyframe like so. And now we could start to get this tricky little timing having to go there between the two, figure out exactly how I want to make this work. Again, if you don't like the timing, maybe we move that one a little bit quicker so it smushes down. And now I've got to really kind of play and time the game to make it work. And just so you know, we can animate any property as mentioned. So you can have multiple properties you can animate it. In this case, let's say I wanted to also have this spinning as we went along. So I'm going to set a keyframe here. It'll create a new track for me, and I can see now I'm animating both the position and the rotation of stomper 2. Maybe as it goes down, I would like to spin it on its y-axis, kind of 90 degrees, and I'm going to set a keyframe there. And if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to set the position right back to the original one, you can actually copy an existing keyframe if you like. I'm moving it to the end here because I want the end to match the beginning rotation. And I'm just going to right click and duplicate that key, and it will put a copy of that keyframe right there so that now they happen to end up in exactly the same position. As we go along, you can see it crushes down and spins, making it, I don't know, maybe visually more interesting, but also you could animate all sorts of things. You could have things spinning on their axes, and now I've made myself a good challenge here for the game. Now I've got just a time to go through there, and I've got to add some level of difficulty to my game. So now you've got animations. We can animate materials. We can animate sun position. We can animate the rotation, the position. We can animate pretty much anything that has a keyframe in your game. And you can start to add some cool other enemies or other things to your game set. Maybe something spinning here. You have to get by it in the right time. Maybe you had some spherical enemies that were patrolling around in certain areas. You can animate their paths and have a bunch of fun to add some level of difficulty to your game.